All right, so this is part 2 of our orienting video for May 7th, ASTRA 6. So Frederick Douglass wrote an apostrophe in his book on page 26. All right, I will quickly read 25 and 26 so you can hear the apostrophe. 25. Sunday is Frederick's only leisure time. He spends the day in a beast-like stupor under a large tree overlooking Chesapeake Bay. His spirit is broken. He still serves Edward Covey, who delights in spying on the slaves in the fields, trying to catch them at rest or enjoying themselves. Covey seems to be everywhere at once. He hides behind trees and fence posts. He watches through windows from the house. He crawls on his hands and knees to conceal himself as he tries to find slaves who are shirking their duty. Frederick is exhausted and he feels completely trapped. So Frederick gets free time one day a week on Sundays. And even then, Edward Covey is always trying to spy on him and other slaves, trying to make sure that they are always doing what they are supposed to do. And Frederick, he's very tired because he's a slave. He doesn't get any time to do what he wants. Even though he has that one day of rest on Sunday, he still has rules and laws that he has to abide by. And he feels like he's no longer a real man. He feels like he's being treated like an animal, with Covey always on his tail, always watching after him and making sure he's not trying to shirk his duty, meaning not do what he's responsible for doing. So here Frederick is exhausted on his Sunday leisure day. Let's see what he says. I have often in the deep stillness of a summer Sabbath stood all alone upon the lofty banks of that noble bay and traced with saddened heart and tearful eye the countless number of sails moving off to the mighty ocean. The sight of these always affected me powerfully. My thoughts would compel utterance, and there with no audience but the Almighty, I would pour out my soul's complaint in my rude way with an apostrophe to the moving multitude of ships. So here Frederick is saying he's sitting by the water on the bank, thinking about his life as a slave, and he's very sad and even sheds tears. He watches the sails on the ocean. He watches the sailboats move, and he wishes he has that kind of freedom, just like the boats do. And he says the sight of the boats would always affect him powerfully. And he would think about it. He would have deep thought about his condition and his situation, but he would only speak out about this to God. He says when they say the Almighty, that's God. That's the God that he prays to. And so he would pour out his soul's complaint. So he's talking about how hard it is to live this life, but he's saying it to God, to the God that he praises and worships. That's the apostrophe. So he's not speaking to someone who's in front of him. He's speaking to a God who's in the heavens to tell about his feeling or his feeling about his condition as being a slave. And this is what he says. He says, "You are loosed from your moorings and free. I'm fast in my chains and am a slave." So in that moment, he's actually talking to the ships. He's saying, "Oh ships, you are free, but I am a slave." He says, "You move merrily before the gentle gale, and I sadly before the bloody whip." That means you get to move about on the water by the wind, but me, I move when somebody tries to whip me, when someone threatens to whip me. That's what makes me get up and move. He says, "You are freedom's swift-winged angels that fly around the world. I am confined in bands of iron. Oh, that I were free. Oh, that I were on one of your gallant decks and under your protecting wing. Alas, betwixt me and you the turbid waters roll. Go on, go on. Oh, that I could also go. Could I but swim? If I could fly? Oh, why was I born a man of whom to make a brute?" So the video is going to end. I'll do one more video and I'll finish